Hello, Heal with Gold. Good evening. It is 8 o'clock on Sunday. If you are watching on YouTube, you're welcome. I'm happy to give you another way for you to be able to tune in, as Heal with Gold is a women-only group. If you're watching from my Facebook page, that's wonderful. Welcome. I am so excited to introduce to you Michelle. She will tell you about herself. She will tell her story, and she will also teach us on how to care for the caregivers, because so many of us, and aloha salud, you are that person that really can get so much from Michelle, because you are an incredible caregiver. So without further ado, let's bring Michelle on. Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us at the Heal with Gold group. I just want you to know that I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that you volunteered. I'm grateful that you are sharing your journey, your story. It's not easy. I have my story. I know that sometimes it's difficult to go back to those places, but I also know that when we share our story with the goal to help people, it gives purpose to our pain. It gives a reason for us going through what we had to go through. And I feel like a bond with all these people that come and volunteer. I really am feeling like all, goosebumps. Because I feel a deep connection to anybody who selflessly, because a lot of people think that you would be embarrassed or you would be ashamed, but actually it's an act of strength, bravery, and courage. And I feel that I'm in the, together next to people that really empower me and inspire me. So welcome. I would like you to share with everybody a little bit about you, what you're doing, what's your profession, what you have been working on, what you're doing. And then after you introduce yourself, we will start going into your story. And from there, we will go into the tips of caring for the caregiver. Is that okay?
Sounds great. So thank you so much.
And I will be popping in and bringing in messages, so you will see, because I don't know that you have access to them. So I'll show you all the people that are already here and sending their love to you.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm starting to see some hellos, so I can see the comments. Hello, everybody. So my name is Michelle Anhang. I live in Toronto, Canada. I am a leadership and life coach. I specialize in working with family members of people with severe mental illness and addictions, helping them find balance and build resilience. And I also work with individuals who have maybe mild mental health challenges, could be depression, could be anxiety, ADHD, people that maybe are seeing a doctor, are on some medication, or saw a therapist, but are really looking for tools and ready to empower themselves, because there are so many things that we can do for our own health that help our mental health. So I do that, and just shipped off 2 boys to university over the last few days. So now I'm just waiting to see what their school year looks like, considering.
No, you don't look like you have such grown children.
Thank you.
So please share with us your story. We know that you lost your husband. He took his own life. But we wanted to know a little bit about him and his background, what led him to take his life, and how you were dealing during that period of time with his mental health, and yours and your children, and how that worked together.
Oh, yes. It's like, where do I start? So many good questions, so many places to go. So yes, 14 years ago, my husband passed away by suicide. He had been suffering from mental illness. So no surprise how I got into the work that I'm doing now. He had bipolar disorder and a form of schizophrenia. He had been diagnosed only about 2.5 years before he passed away. I think he was really hiding it very well, and the symptoms were manifesting slowly. And but it only reached a point where we got him to see a doctor, got him help. He was, I guess, 32 at the time, because he passed away. He just turned 35. So he was a very gentle, beautiful human being, a wonderful soul, the kind of guy that was always smiling. Everybody loved him. So nice, so kind, so helpful. He was very handy, and none of our friends could fix anything. So he was the guy. You called Ellie when you wanted when you needed anything done, furniture moved, anything fixed. He was that guy. But sadly, the illness took over, and he wasn't that same person. Over the course of those few years, it was very challenging.
So I want to interrupt you for a second.
Yes.
You said something to me right now that, in a way, surprised me. Because, and I'll tell you why, and I think it's such a good point. The reason why it surprised me is, I have my set of challenges, but they're not with living with somebody with mental illness. So let's put it this way. I'm from the group of people that don't know what you're talking about, that didn't experience your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all kinds of different beliefs and understandings that are false. A lot of it happens because of what we read in magazines or TV shows that are not reality. But you described him as a happy person, as a giving person, as a productive person. And one would not think that would go together with somebody who was struggling so much.
Well,
was it a shock to you too?
Sorry?
Was it a shock to you too?
Well, there are many people, like you look at the celebrities like Robin Williams, the comedian,
right,
who died the same way, had depression. That's what they do. They put on the smile. Because there's so much stigma around it. So they put the mask on, and we, as women especially, know what it's like. Like, how many masks do we wear? That's the next section that we'll talk about.
yes.
But I think that's the piece that in our society, in our culture, we normalize, and we give people a badge of honor for, oh, you're so strong, or I'm so busy and I'm so stressed and I'm this and I'm that. And it's like, yeah, go you. But if you're tired, if you're depressed, if you're sad, we look at it as a weakness. So yeah, they put that smile on. They're faking it all the way through. He hid a lot of it from me as well. I didn't know. I knew many parts, but I think, I'm as I'm thinking back about like the specifics, it was really only after the diagnosis came in that he gave himself the permission to stay in bed, to be ill. Because until then, he was fighting it, and we know what that's like. Like, we push ourselves to the point of, to the breaking point, because everybody else needs us. And I feel like he did that too, because he was always giving to everyone else, and really never gave himself that time to, be with what he was feeling.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
It's okay.
I just had to know.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a great question, because we don't always know. And there are like little signs, and we, when you think about it, sometimes like we have a friend who's always sad, always complaining. And we're like, oh, there they are again. And we're not coming from a place of compassion. Like, we're like, oh, why can't, but maybe there's something else going on. And this is something that I speak about often when I talk about stigma of, every one of us needing to take a moment and check in with ourselves where we judge people. Where do we judge our friends? Like, like looking at that friend, like, oh, why is she always complaining?
Right.
Like, she never has anything good to say. Like, instead, like, saying to them, is everything okay?
Right.
You maybe you need to, and then see what opens up, because that's the thing that, like, many of us, and I probably was doing that with my husband too. I had 2 little kids. They were 7 and 4 when he passed away. He had stopped working 2 years before he died. So I was working 2 jobs, raising these little kids. Like, when he stopped working, my younger one was 18 months. So I had an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old, or 4, and I'm working 2 jobs. I had no patience. It's like, oh, you're complaining, like, so. And that's the honesty, and the reality is that we don't always look for that. We're not always thinking about what might be going on with the other person.
Right. Gina, you put a good question here. Do me a favor, hold on to this question and then ask again at the very end. So then we can go back and answer the questions. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I think where was I going? I think maybe just so I was saying that he was sick. He wasn't well. I was working 2 jobs. I had the boys, and you were asking me how I took care of myself, and I didn't. I did what many of us do. I went into autopilot. It's like, don't feel, don't think, just go. And every day I woke up and I knew what I needed to do throughout the day, and it was one task to the next to the next. I didn't even dare to stop for a moment and check in with what was going on, because I was afraid of, if I start to feel, I don't know where this is going. And I know I need to take care of my family. Mm-hmm. So I just kept going. And then after my husband passed away, it was the same thing, just keep going. And
how old were the kids?
The kids were 7 and 4.
Wow.
Yeah. And, we grew up in a community that doesn't talk about mental health, that doesn't talk about suicide. And so after he passed away, when the family was gathering together, like within the first couple of hours, one of them said to me, "What are we going to tell people?" And then it was decided, okay, let's, we're going to say it was an accident. And, I agreed. This was, I was in shock. Everything, was going through my head at the time of, how do I tell my kids? I don't understand this, because I should mention too, he never once said, I want to die, I want to kill myself. Like, you hear so often that people will talk about it. He didn't. Like, I think he was really trying to protect us. So this was a complete shock. It was like, how do I tell my kids? And then I went into the blame and the guilt of like, did I do enough? I was managing his medication. I was managing everything. And did I mess up somewhere along the way? What might I have done? Is this somehow my fault? And, and we do this to ourselves. And so I, when the idea of, let's say it was an accident, I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then I just took everything, all the emotions that were already being stuffed. It was like, take the grief now. We're pushing that down too. Mm-hmm. And I kept going. It was really a matter of survival.
Wow. I cannot even imagine, because you were dealing with so many different aspects of the pain, because you were also dealing with the loss of the father of your children, the man that you loved. And I think that after a person dies, you automatically remember mostly the good, and then maybe that period of time that he was sick, I don't know if that happened to you, but my father passed away last year and he was sick for 10 years. But when I think about my father, I think about when he was
Yeah.
healthy and things were good. You know,
Yeah.
that's where my brain wants to go, and that's where my
Yeah.
heart wants to go.
Yeah.
So you grieve, and I don't think about, oh, he suffered so much, now that he's in peace. I think about, I need my dad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you know, with a natural death or some, you know, and when I say natural, it could be from natural causes, or it's like losing a parent. But, you know, 34-year-old women and 7 and 4-year-old children should not be losing their husband and father. So it was very unnatural. And the way it, you know, it was too, like, so I'll very honestly, and I will be totally transparent, I was not thinking loving thoughts. I was thinking, you know, after all of this, how could you leave me? I have to raise the kids by myself. Your family is wondering what I did wrong, because that's, you know, they're like, did you do this? Did you do this? Yes, yes, yes. You know, you're under interrogation. This is natural. This is what happens, because everyone's looking for, like, where did we go wrong? And then, you know, and people like to point fingers because it's easier than taking the blame, because we're already thinking that. And it's like, where did anybody go wrong? And this is, you know, they're a lovely family. This is just what happens.
Wow.
So there wasn't a minute at that time that I was feeling that. It was, you know, how am I going to support our family? We were in a financial mess. So, you know, for people that don't know what bipolar disorder is, you go between two ends of the spectrum. Either you're, you know, he was depressed, and so he would be in bed for days, or when he'd be manic, the manic episodes, so they feel like they're invincible.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very, very high energy, but more energy than, you know, just being happy. And so they take risks, they do things. So I didn't know until after he passed away the financial mess that we were in, even though I took care of the finances, because when he was manic, he was doing things that, you know, going to the bank, taking out loans, doing all sorts of stuff that, you know, because he was not well and not thinking straight. So, you know, as I'm finding all this out, it's like, oh my gosh, how could you do this to me? And you were supposed to be here to grow old with me, and you've left me alone to clean up this mess. So, you know, there were a lot of, you know, there's guilt, and then there's anger.
Sure.
And sadness too, and shock and everything. But, you know, what made it harder too was that I'm pretending I'm grieving an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't talk about any of this. And that piece was very, very challenging, you know, just having to keep it inside.
Wow. So what did you tell the children?
Daddy died in an accident.
Oh, so they
thought, yeah, because I was like, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I needed months of therapy for me to understand why. Until my therapist finally said to me, Michelle, you're not God. Like, you know, because I was just like, what could I have done? She's like, life and death is not in your hands. It's not in any human's hands. Like, God decides this. And if a person wants to die, they're going to die. You could not have changed anything. And so how do I explain this to two kids? Like, you know, my 4-year-old didn't even understand what it meant to be dead. Like, his first question to me was, is daddy like a mummy on Scooby-Doo, like wrapped in toilet paper? That's what he's picturing. His father's walking around the streets like that. And it was only a year later that he finally said, he's not coming back, is he? Because he understood that a long time had passed. But at 4, he couldn't understand what forever even meant. And my 7-year-old, you know, didn't understand it either. And, you know, his first reaction was, I'm the man of the house now, mommy, I'll take care of you. And I was like, you're 7, be a kid. So how on earth am I going to say, you know, and this is, you know, like, how could he understand what suicide meant? Like, I didn't want him to have any of that. So it felt like the easier choice at the time to say, you know, but it wasn't easier, because it took such a toll on me, because I kept it in for almost 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in a way, you were living this charade, like this lie.
Yes.
And And that doesn't help with the anger. I think that creates
Mm-hmm.
constant state of anger, because now you're telling this person, now I have to lie for the rest of my life too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So walk us through the
Mm-hmm.
time period in your life that you were ready to break that wall, to stop with the lies, to
Mm.
to come,
Yeah.
the reality, and share with people so openly as you're doing here, so raw and authentic. And we're so grateful, because this is your life and your pain, and you're just teaching us. And I always tell
Mm.
everybody, I don't share stories, and I told you that, for the soap opera effect.
Yeah.
I share stories because we need to learn from them
Yeah.
how to behave better, how
Yeah.
to react better. And what you just taught us here, this is tremendous. That this lie caused, in a way, didn't allow you to grieve properly.
No.
So tell us about when you became ready to tell people.
Yeah, sure. So I'll very quickly give you a high level overview of what those 10 years looked like to understand how I finally got to the point of saying no more. So when we suppress all these emotions, we become depressed. That's what happens when we don't let ourselves feel. Our body shuts itself down. So I became depressed. I developed anxiety because I was worried all the time. What if somebody finds out by accident? Because there were a few people that knew, some family knew, some close friends. What if the wrong person says something and somehow my kids find out? So I spent 10 years depressed and anxious. And every choice I made was from this place of, don't make too much noise, like just be small, hide, be as little as you can, take whatever comes your way, because, you don't want to mess up what's going on. Like I was literally tiptoeing through life. And unfortunately, I, created a lot of painful situations for myself, because that's what we do when we don't see our own value and when we're not loving ourselves. And so I reached a point, I had turned 45. I was in a very unhealthy relationship. I was in a job that I wasn't happy in. And I had just started doing the coaches training because my friend said, you have to try this course, to go take it, and I did. And the instructor said, his inspirational words at the end, he said, don't just tolerate life. Life is, more than that. And I'm like, oh, just boom.
That is deep, guys. Listen to this. Don't just
Yeah.
tolerate life.
Yeah, because how much do we tolerate in the best of circumstances, and that's when I realized, oh my God, I'm living this lie. I'm tolerating everything in my life. And I made that decision of, I can't do this anymore. I've been in pain, and of course, around 45, we start assessing our lives and looking, and I said, okay, I've been in pain, this long. I don't want to spend the next half of my life in this pain. And I made the commitment to myself, whatever it takes, I'm going to do the therapy. I'm going to do the work. It can't be harder than what I'm living right now. And so I did it. I did major therapy, all different kinds. I mean, I had PTSD. I had, I had the trauma. I had to do all different forms of trauma therapy and somatic work, because trauma gets stored in our bodies on top of the therapy I was doing. And I don't recommend that for everyone. It was very intense, like 3 different appointments with 3 different people every week. But I was determined. I was just like, I'm going to do this. And finally, I reached a point where I didn't want to carry that shame around anymore. It was just, it was too heavy. I talk about, this backpack that I was wearing that had my shame, his shame, everybody's shame. It's like, oh yeah, shame, give it to me. I'm already carrying some, I'll carry yours. And it was so heavy. And so I came to the point where I had to tell my kids, and I did. They were 15 and 18 at the time. And I called them for dinner, and, and it wasn't a spontaneous thing at all. Like, I don't want to say that, oh yeah, I had the courage boot. No, it was very well planned. It was very well structured. I had a lot of support around that, friends, colleagues, that were able to support me and be with me through, right before, I had a Zoom call with everybody that was part of my team. And then, said, okay, I'm going to go tell my kids. And then right after, I got on a Zoom call and said, oh, okay, it's done. So yeah, I could not have done it with all that love and support that I got. And thankfully my kids took it very well. And this is something also I want to say, like, I carried for 10 years this fear of, what if I tell my children the truth and they hate me and they never speak to me again and they don't understand? And that terrified me. And, I always said, I'll tell them, I always wanted to tell them, but I said, I'll tell them when they're older, when they're parents, and then they understand why we do these things. But it ended up not happening that way. But they were wonderful about it. They said they wish they had known from the beginning, but they understood. They knew what our family, the family, the community, they knew that this is just not talked about, and they understood why. And I said, from this point on, it's only honesty. I will answer whatever questions you have. And and it was amazing because it really opened up a whole new level to our relationship. Like, all of my fears were wrong. Like I say, like, fear is a liar. Just know that, because it will tell you the worst case scenario that likely is never going to happen. Right. But it goes there, and it could not have been further from the truth. Wow. It was really wonderful.
So I believe that you started healing from his loss also at that point, when you had this freedom to do it in public.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was healing all the way through. It was really, challenging so many of the stories I was telling myself, and judgments I made about myself. I really, when we talk about self-love, I was self-loathing. I really did not like the person that I was, because, I wanted to think of myself as an honest person. And then here I am carrying this huge lie that I'm not even telling my children. Like, how can you see yourself as a good person? Or like, I had trouble doing that. It was like, how can I? This is who I am. That's how I was identifying myself. But after I told them, and it came out so beautifully, that's when I realized, the work that I wanted to do and who I wanted to support. And I said to my kids, okay, this is what I think. And, at this point, it was a few months later, and we were having many conversations, and they were like, yeah, you have to do that. And I said, okay, now I need to share this with the world. And so, what's the best way to get things known fast? You put it on Facebook. So I put a post out on Facebook telling people, because my husband and I also grew up together. We knew each other since we were 8 years old. Wow. So yeah, and Facebook wasn't around when he passed away. So, over all these years, I had hundreds of friends that knew him, that knew us together, that knew me growing up, that heard the story, and, oh, poor thing, her husband died in an accident. And it was like, here you go. And so I told everyone the truth. And then I said, this is the work that I want to do in the world. And, even that was terrifying. It took me 3 weeks. I think I rewrote that post 11 times. My son, who, was studying communications already in university, he's an excellent writer. He was proofreading it. He was editing it for me. And then he's like, okay, Mom, now put it out. I'm like, not yet. I need more time. So, and that was the thing too. I was just scared of the judgment. And again, fear was a liar, because I was overwhelmed with, like, I cried all day because I had so much love. Like, it was shared, I don't know how many times it was, like the views, like over 4,000, and people sharing it with their friends. I had strangers messaging me, people from like every area of my life messaging me, calling me, and everybody just giving me so much love. And it was like, wow, okay. And so, yes, another piece of the healing. Right. And it kept moving from there.
Incredible. So now I want to go into the real topic of our conversation, which is caring for the caregiver.
Yeah.
This is like such an important topic. And in this group, there are quite a few caregivers in different levels and capacities. My husband had a stroke less than a year ago,
Mhm.
and he's functional with his hands and arms, but he's not able to work. He doesn't, his memory, varies. Sometimes he remembers, sometimes he
Yeah.
doesn't remember. And in a way or another, I'm a caregiver. I'm the one
Yeah.
working. And there's many different situations in which people become caregivers. But also moms, now when I'm thinking about moms of young children who have to homeschool and they have to work and they're dealing with the anxiety level that's in the homes, those are caregivers. I mean, we're all at some point in our lives, we are caregivers. And I know that I'm not taking care of myself the way I should. So when we discussed and I'm like, oh my God, I need this speech so much. So please tell me.
Okay. So I'll
Please tell me.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying don't do anything that I told you I did up to now. Do the opposite, because that's not the way to take care of yourself. So what I learned through my healing and through the work that I do, the caring for the caregiver is the most important thing we can do for ourselves and for our loved ones. Number one. I know so many of us were raised with this story of you just give, and if you are taking care of yourself, you're being selfish. So first thing I want to say is that's also a lie. It's coming from older generations that maybe that's how they did things, but it does not apply. It's not true. I know from doing it the way that's made me suffer to doing it the way that I'm doing it now and being healthy and thriving and doing good things, it's not selfish at all. It's actually necessary. It's so important. So, when we're thinking about caring for ourselves, we talk about self-love and, there's so many words out there and it's like, well, what does that even mean? So the first thing I can start with sharing is what I call the friend test. It's being your own best friend. Because if you take a minute and you think about how you talk to yourself, would you ever say any of those things to a friend of yours if they were telling you, even if they weren't telling you their problems, just would you talk to them the way that you talk to yourself? And the answer is no.
I mentioned that in my book.
There you go.
And I give examples of how we would never, ever speak to our friend and we say to ourselves.
That's right. Yes. So the self-talk, noticing what you're saying. Now, from a scientific perspective, because I love neuroscience, we have what we call neural pathways. So we have a way of thinking or a way, and maybe the way we speak to ourselves is one pathway. So it's like, the more you do it, you're basically like, if you imagine a field and you're walking in one path, eventually this path grows and it becomes wider. Dirt doesn't grow there, grass doesn't grow anymore. You have a very well-worn path. So that negative self-talk is a very well-worn path. So what you need to start doing is create a new path. And so it's not about saying like, oh, like I'll give an example of like, oh, you're so stupid, you forgot to, pick up the milk. So instead of doing that, which is an awful way to speak to ourselves, instead of saying, oh, yeah, I shouldn't say that, say something nice. So it's changing the path. And it's about saying like, I'm not stupid. I'm busy. I'm doing a lot. Like I'm a warrior. I'm a queen. I'm whatever, but something very positive. Because what happens is the more that you turn it, the easier it gets. And you just start talking that way to yourself. Like when I compare how I used to, like I used to say like I was abusive to myself. I was terrible. And now I would never speak to myself that way. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Well, no kidding, I forgot. I'm juggling 20 things right now. Of course, I'm human. That's it. So the more that you do that and you change it into a positive statement, you're now creating a new path that becomes deeper and wider. In the meantime, the old path gets overgrown because nobody's walking there. So you don't even think to go there anymore. So it's all these little pieces of the way that we're thinking that you can actually change your brain. And so when people are thinking, oh, well, I can't do that, you can. And actually, if you are committed to doing it, it doesn't take that long. It's maybe a few weeks. And you're going to notice, oh, I'm not calling myself stupid anymore. Amazing. And it's only when you hear someone else say it to themselves, oh, I'm so stupid. You're like, oh, wait, I haven't done that in a while. So, noticing that, noticing as well with the friend test of, if your friend is telling you she's exhausted, like, oh, I was up with my kids and my husband and this and that, you tell them, like, take a break. You deserve a break. Well, guess what? So do we. And so it's speaking to yourself that same way and giving yourself that advice. Like, all the advice you give to everyone you love also applies to you. You're the only one that thinks it doesn't. So you get to change that. And the more you do it, the more you're going to love it, and it just becomes a part of who we are. And what I found is the more I take care of me, the more I can take care of others, not just my family, but the community, the world. Like, I have more energy, I have more love, I have more capacity, because they say, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. When we are completely depleted, we're not good to anybody. So, like, and if you think about how we're showing up when we are depleted, we're snapping at everybody in our family. We're angry all the time. We're exhausted. And so, we're not being very loving. Like, we think, like, oh, look, I'm doing so much for my family. Yeah, you're yelling at them all the time, or wanting to, or even thinking, resentful thoughts. That's not being loving. But when you take care of yourself, and and it's easy ways. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Get enough sleep at night. Eat healthy. Treat your body like the temple it is. We don't respect our bodies enough, but our bodies are getting us through everything in life. So honor it and trust. And so that's where I say, like, sleep, eat, exercise. And if you don't love exercising, go for a walk, go outside. Like, nature, we all know, we go outside for a walk and we come back, oh, that was amazing. It doesn't take a lot. Sit in the backyard, or wherever, but it's those little moments that we can carve into our day and that we're intentional about that make all the difference, and it's not to say, like, okay, never eat cookies or cake. No, guess what? Being kind to ourselves means we get to do that too, but it's also realizing that I'm also eating lots of healthy food to keep my body as strong as I can, to keep it healthy.
I am so happy that you're saying everything that you're saying. The people who are here know that I'm at the process of editing my book and sending out to the printer. And I have just finished reviewing those chapters that I speak about that. And I have to tell you that I added, because when I decided that I was going to live intentionally and I was going to take care of myself, I didn't know how to begin. I in general spoke to myself kindly, but I knew that I needed more. And I decided to begin a morning routine. So I started waking up an hour before my family, and I really intentionally chose a group of things that I wanted to do every morning, that they would give me pleasure, and that I would know that an hour into my day, I was the boss. I already did so much, I was the queen because I have already done so many things. And I spent 10 to 15 minutes in different areas that were important to me. And an hour in my day, I really feel so accomplished. So I am doing a lot of bad things. For example, and you mentioned that, getting a lot of sleep, or eating healthy and making sure that you have good nutrition, because you need to take care of the body, which is the stample. I think that I have a tremendous weakness in that area, and it is my next to focus on. But it is so important for people to understand that while getting a manicure, going shopping, having a massage, those are wonderful things. You can't keep doing them every single day, but there are things that you can do every single day and that you can afford because they don't cost anything, but that you can do every single day to strengthen that yourself as a human being, so you can serve and you can be a better parent and a better child.
Yeah. And I love what you were saying about the morning routine, because I do that too.
You do.
And I get up early, and, I also, for me, I go for an hour-long walk. I listen to an audio book as I'm walking. I do some journaling. I, might do some exercising, depends how much time and when my first client is. But, for me, I'm starting my day feeling amazing because I've taken care of me. And that sets the tone for the whole rest of the day. It is so worth, getting up early. But it also meant that I went to sleep an hour earlier. And, my body's like, woohoo, finally, she realized she can, I, particularly in the pandemic, that's when it started, because, we were all home anyways, we couldn't go anywhere. And I just realized, like, wow, I'm feeling so good. And once I started doing that and feeling so good, it's like, why would I want to feel worse? Now it becomes an addiction in a good way of just, what, my body is thanking me. I'm feeling healthy. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling loved by myself. Mm-hmm. And then I start my day just overflowing. And so it's like, okay, who needs something? Please,
I need some tools. I personally do. And I'm sure there's some other people here that need also, is the going to sleep earlier and calming down. It's that, and I know people are going to say, turn off your phone. Don't bring the phone to bed. That blue light is not good. Start by calming down and listening to soft music. I know all of that. But I haven't managed to implement those things into my daily routine. Yeah. Was it something that for you, when you make the decision to go to sleep earlier so you can wake up earlier, was it an easy transition for you?
You know what? It was easy only because I was practicing many things leading up to it. For me, the way I see it is, we're making commitments. We make commitments to everybody in our family, to everything in our lives, and we show up fully, but we don't make those commitments to ourselves. And so it's about committing to yourself and saying, I am worth it. Mm-hmm. And recommitting every single day, the same way, like, if we're married and we have a commitment to our partner, and not every day is a honeymoon. But we keep showing up every single day because we made the commitment to do that, or to our children, to raising our children, who, or the jobs that we're in, whatever it is. But we, it's thinking about all the other commitments in our lives and making that same commitment to ourselves, because often we let ourselves go first when actually we're the most important. We have to come first, like, because what are the commitments to everybody else when we're not committing to ourselves? So it's really making that a priority. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to say about the slowing down and all of that. Like, I learned mindfulness. I train mindfulness and meditation, and it is so much that. And for, slowing down for some people is good, and for other people, speeding up is good. So there's not one answer. It's really, our bodies know, and it's listening to your body and seeing, like, oh, I feel really good when I do this. I'm going to keep doing it and continue and making the commitment to keep doing it.
Very interesting. You know what? I always was under the impression that I shouldn't exercise at night because you should wind down before you go to sleep. But I'm going to try something different and see how I react if I exercise, take a shower, and then go to bed. For my active brain, it may be the thing, but I never even considered trying something different. That's fantastic.
There you go.
I want to open up for questions. I know Gina had a question.
Yes.
Gina, can you post that question again if you're still here? Let's see, or I can try to scroll and see her question. Or anybody else that has a question, please feel free to put it up now.
And I want to add one more very important piece as we're waiting for questions. Ask for help. So often we think we can do it on our own. We don't want to bother anyone. We don't want to burden them, but we can't do it alone. We need support. Ask for help. If it's, with kids, ask a friend, ask a family member, or pay a babysitter. But if you need that time, make it a priority and ask for support. Like, we humans are not meant to do things alone. Like we are community driven. We need other people. And so don't feel like you need to do all of that on your own, like a lone soldier. Like, it's about the community. People want to help. People that love us want to, like, it's a gift to them. And I say this so often, and people are like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. But really, like, when you give somebody the opportunity to help you, both people benefit, because that person then feels so honored that you could trust them to ask for that help, and they get the benefit and the joy of giving.
So true.
So, more of that.
So true. So I found Gina's question. Yeah. How do you talk about it without hurting another? I just don't remember exactly.
I remember I think it was in the context of if you see somebody that you're concerned about,
exactly.
that might have some mental health challenges. So what I say is, often, so sorry, depression. Yes. So often it's, if you're concerned about somebody that you love maybe not being well, because of the stigma around mental health, if sometimes if you say like, oh, I think you might have depression or you seem depressed, the walls go up. So what I say is, just check in with your friends, say, is everything okay? You don't seem like yourself lately. And then back off and let them open up and give them the opportunity to then meet you, because you don't want to go push too much because they might not be ready. And then just saying like, I'm here. And I'm going to check in with you tomorrow if that's okay. Because, something important to know is that there are many physical issues we can have with our bodies that have very similar symptoms to depression. We can have a vitamin deficiency that makes us tired and sleep all the time. And then we're cranky and we're depressed and we're negative. And it could look like depression, but it's not. So, what I say is say to people, you're not yourself, and just say like, maybe if you don't have the same energy, go to your doctor and just, get them to do some blood work.
And I'm going to tell you something about this because it's crazy that you mentioned it. Crazy. Okay. When my husband had a stroke, he had a stroke in the middle of the night. The next morning, he asked me where we lived. I told him, that's weird. And he said, I feel weird, but he didn't want to go to the doctor. Only the next day we went to the doctor. And this was Friday, and only Saturday night that I ended up taking him to the hospital. Last week, I felt different. I felt something off in my body. And I was telling my husband, I'm feeling weird. And my husband said, for sure you are. You're not sleeping enough. You're not eating well. You're not exercising. You sit at your desk 18 hours a day. You need to sleep. And I said, no, I need to sleep. My whole life I need to sleep because I'm always working with that. Something is different. So I go to the doctor, and literally I'm telling you a story that happened 2.5 days ago. The doctor tells me, Miriam, you're not sleeping and you're not eating well. You gained weight. You need to lose some weight, blah, blah, blah. Beautiful. I told him, do me a favor. Take my blood. He called me the next day, and this is what he said, and I'm blown away by what you said, because I would never have thought what came next. He said, in my entire career of being a doctor, I've never seen a patient with so little vitamin D. I live in Florida. I mean, the sun, and I do take calls sometimes outside because I love the sun, but I had literally no vitamin D, and he put me in a very, a lot of vitamin D, a lot of vitamin D. and in a month I have to do another test. But it was exactly what you said, the symptoms of being
Yeah.
moody, of being tired and exhausted. And I was feeling that it was not just that I'm overwhelmed and anxiety. I felt that there was a difference in me.
Yeah.
And yes, going to the doctor, and nobody told me, Miriam, you're more irritable. I wish somebody came to me and said,
Right.
you know, let's go to the doctor and see what's going on, because it's so simple
Yeah.
as taking some vitamins.
Yeah.
So this was a very good question and a very good answer.
Yeah.
And I also think that when I started this group, I have to tell you guys, I had to remove a member of the group. Because, and I only say that is because I created this place. So we have a place of no judgment. So we have a place where no matter what's your problem, no matter what the stage of your life you're in, you can come and say, I need some love. I'm having a hard time. I wanted to create a place where we knew that we can come back to and ask for some love and support. And all the members who are going to be in this group are people who are willing to give love and support. Otherwise, they can leave. It's not the home for them. You know, it's not the place for them. They can go somewhere else. But it's important to know that we have that space. But like you said, Michelle, most people want to be that person. Most people want to give that love. The judgment that we feel we're going to get, it's part of those lies that we tell ourselves of the worst case scenario that actually is not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. So yeah. And just to address the part about suicide, you know, if you know someone who, so if somebody you know is suicidal, if they're talking about suicide, what you know, I've done suicide prevention training, and what they tell you to do is you have to ask the person, are you you know, if they say like, oh, I want to die, or, you know, I'm going to kill myself, the first question you ask them is, do you have a plan? And people are scared of asking that. But the truth is, that's the best way to do it. And you're going to get an answer one way or another very quickly. And that's actually the best way to judge it. And if they say yes, then yes, you know, you want to then get them help right away. If they say no, then you want to check in with them and just, okay, I'm here, and tell them, I'm going to check in with you tomorrow. And then the next day, I'm going to check in with you again. Don't just leave them. You know, make sure that they have that support, but don't be afraid to ask. You're not going to put the idea in their head. We're so afraid we're going to give someone the idea. But if I asked you, Miriam, if, you know, you're going to do it, you know, if you're not going to, it's not going to say, oh, hey, yeah, that's an idea. Maybe I should do that. We don't do that. If we're healthy and we're okay and we're happy, and generally, you know, with suicide, there is some kind of mental health challenge. They are suffering. You know, people that die by suicide, the majority are in so much pain. They're not choosing to die. This is the only way they can see to stop the pain. So we're not giving them the idea. If anything, we're helping them find a healthier way to you know, or something to ease the pain. And sometimes just being there for them can save a life.
I also just want to mention something. Actually, next week, we have Elisa Bulow coming to speak. She lost her son to suicide. Mm-hmm. And she told me something, because I interviewed her a few years ago. She said something very interesting. She said, nobody blames the person who dies from a heart attack. Nobody blames somebody who had an accident and died. Nobody, or cancer or anything else. But when a person commits suicide, the person really died of mental illness.
Yeah.
They didn't die of the suicide. They died of the mental illness. They were sick. It was an illness. And so there shouldn't be a stigma. And also, nobody should feel responsible, you know, because they were sick. Nobody has really the power to control if somebody commits or doesn't commit suicide. We can give the help. We can give the support. We can open up doors to certain treatments, But at the end of the day, this is not something that it's on anybody's hands to
No.
prevent. So
No.
nobody should feel guilty either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a natural process that we do go through the guilt, because that's how we come to terms with it. You know, we'll always ask ourselves, could I have done more? But the reality is, I think most of us are doing our best. And
Exactly.
it's believing that and knowing that. And sometimes it takes some time to get there, but 100%, you know, they're not making this choice from, you know, a healthy brain that's thinking about it the way you and I might be thinking about it.
Right.
You know, and I know, like, from my husband, like, he was not the same person. I didn't even know who he was. Like, at the end, like towards the end, I remember one night, like, looking at him next to me in bed saying, like, I don't know who this is. And I had been married to him for 12 years at that point. And we were together I was together with him for 16 years by the time I was 34. I knew him since we were 8. Like, there was nothing I did not know about him. And I was looking at him and he was a stranger, because the illness just changed him. And so, yeah, it's really having the compassion for people that are talking about it, and people who are down. And, you know, and it's so important that we check in with ourselves when we're noticing judgment, and just really saying, like, okay, where can I give this person love?
Right.
You know, yeah.
I wanted to do this month in September. I have 3 speakers, you and 2 more, who were affected and impacted by suicide. The reason I wanted to do that is because I want people to know that this can happen to anybody, meaning this is not something that, oh, it doesn't happen to somebody like me, it only happens to somebody else. That's not the case. Yeah. And because of that, and because September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, this is only a month. We need to have to keep those things in mind throughout, you know, our years and our days and our lives. We always have to be considerate and loving of other people. But we take the time once a year to just bring this topic, because it's an uncomfortable and painful topic. So we speak about it so we can be conscious throughout the year and be kind and loving to our friends and family, people in our community. I wanted to know if anybody else has any questions for Michelle. Any other questions? We'll share some comments, vitamins. We can read all. Guys, I want to thank Michelle for opening up, sharing her story, being so open and upfront with us, and helping us with tools and tips so we can be better caregivers, starting with ourselves and then with all of the ones that we love. April is asking if you coach, and yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
Michelle, do me a favor.
Yes.
Drop your information in the group.
Sure.
Please write how people can communicate with you, if you have an email or a phone number, or if you want people
I have everything. But if you're looking to reach me immediately, my last name is Anhang, Anhang. So it's Michelle Anhang Coaching. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. My website is michelleanhangcoaching.com, and I will put it in the group.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I want people to know that when I bring speakers, we're not pitching. What we're doing is making connections and allowing people to find healthcare providers or mentors or coaches or whatever that will help them in their healing process, because that's the goal, is to help people find the right connectors with great mental health and stability and friendship and so on. Thank you, Michelle.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Please join us again. And next week, we have Elisa Bulow. She's amazing. She's my mentor. She's somebody who has helped me tremendously when I was in my lows. The week after that, we're going to talk about my book. It's my birthday. We're going to share. I want to share with you. I decided that this is who I wanted to be with for my birthday. And then to finish September, we'll have Deborah Kay, who is an Emmy nominee. She's a TV producer. She has an addict. Her father committed suicide. She has a tremendous story going from ashes to an Emmy nomination. So keep joining us. We'll keep bringing you amazing, amazing speakers. This is all free and just because we love you so much. Thank you. Good night.